Hello and welcome to the Snap Happy live video forum. Well, that's a wrap for this year. Snap Happy season 7 has finished, and we hope you enjoyed the 8 episodes that we were able to put out through 10 Bold. Without further ado, let's bring on our guests, Julianne Cost and Darren Leal. Welcome, guys.
Hey mate, how's it going?
Good, good. Hi, Julianne.
Hello, how are you?
I'm well, thanks. So we're wrapped up for another year, and Julianne is our guest presenter. How did you find the experience?
I was fantastic. I loved every minute of it. Yeah, it was absolutely fantastic. I so rarely get to travel and stay in the same places for a few days, and actually have, photography be the priority and editing. So it was great. You guys put together a great tour. We really had no mishaps, touch wood.
Yeah,
And it was just a fantastic time. Yeah.
and I
You got
think
to travel with really nice Aussies, didn't you?
I did. I did. It was really lovely. And I never had to drive. So that was a plus probably for everyone involved.
Yeah,
and I think the segments that you brought to the show as well were really complementary to the show, and yeah, you brought a new perspective and just showing the power of Lightroom and what you can actually do with your images, taking them from the field right through. I really enjoyed them personally and took a lot away myself.
Well, thank you. It's when I think once you start learning the tools, it gets even easier because then when you're out in the field, you're like, well, I know how I'm envisioning this. And if you can just tuck that away in the back of your mind, if you know that you are capable of doing that in post-processing, not fixing something necessarily, but really just kind of making it align with your emotions or feelings or what you remember something being like, then it really does make photography more fun, at least for me.
Definitely.
No,
And
I've enjoyed your extended videos as well, Julianne. They were really cool. A little bit on TV is always great, but on the web you can go and see the full version and gives a bit more depth to what you just talked about, the keenness of seeing images, working images, and the enjoyment, as you know, of later on doing something with your photographs.
Absolutely. So I really appreciate you putting those together because, like, it's difficult to get a whole step of, numerous steps together in a very short amount of time. So,
yep.
yeah.
Yeah, well, that resource is there for anyone who wants to go and have a look on our YouTube channel. Darren, if it's not too rude to say, you're looking a bit tired there, mate. Why do you look tired?
I thought I was looking quite colourful, and up here in tropical North Queensland, where we've just gone through a cyclone. I've got to say, I missed the cyclone. My poor wife Julia had to hunker down and sort of tie everything up and get everything out because of the high winds and that. But in the end, all good. And yes, I'm tired because I've just done 7.5 weeks, 4 tours, 15 flights, too many beds in South America.
And you got some pickies to show us, mate?
Yeah, mate, I can. We had a great time as the guys all got stunning photographs. So let me just see if I can get this to work. Is probably going to be the more important part. Uh-oh. What's it going to do? No, I might not be able to share as easy.
All right. Well, while Darren's working that out, Julianne, you've just been on a trip as well. You've been to the Arctic. Tell us about that.
That was pretty crazy. It was an amazing trip. So flew over to Norway and from there up to Svalbard, got on a small vessel, a ship, icebreaker, and headed north for 2 days. Saw some polar bears, saw some walrus, saw some polar bears eating a walrus. Saw lots of birds, and then went further west over to the east side of Greenland. And from there went down and landed in Iceland and spent a few days going from the north of the island around the ring road back to Reykjavik. So it
Awesome.
was just a wonderful, yeah, amazing, amazing trip. But I think all travel is amazing. So yeah, it was really, really quite nice. No aerial photography though. It's a little disappointing there. I was super happy to get all the aerial work done in Australia.
Yeah, nice. So, have you started processing these images yet?
I have. I just brought some over from, let's see, I don't know that I can go full screen here. So let's just import these right into, if you'll give me a moment. Are you ready?
Sure. How are you doing, Darren? Have you got
Darren?
some images for us?
It wants me to go out of the meeting and back in because I've got to
Oh,
change my preferences and that. So
well, that's a bummer.
it's not going to be worth it, unfortunately. But if anyone links up to our Instagram or Facebook, they can see all the imagery there.
Yeah, well, let me
Right.
how you
Yeah.
going, Julianne? You might have the same issue there with that.
Possible.
Let me see.
possible.
I will start. Let's see if I can share my screen. And
So wait a sec. It's changed the.
oh,
Hey, there's
that's not my screen.
That's
Is
Darren.
that my screen?
That's you, Darren.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it changed. There you go.
Hey.
Okay, so these are just literally my desktop screen saved images. And this is from the last trip in Patagonia. So we did 2 Argentinian trips. We did Atacama Desert and we did Patagonia. And we had stunning, stunning landscapes to shoot. Torres del Paine National Park. We were up 4 o'clock, leaving the hotel at 4 o'clock in the morning to go and get these shots. Some beautiful fire trees out with mountains in the background. So I was going through different imagery with people and, controlling depth of field, telling stories with the beautiful flowers and the mountains as a backdrop. And gauchos, so real opportunistic stuff around. Then we went to Los Glaciers National Park. I've been fortunate, been to these places many times. You can still see them okay, Tim?
Yeah. So you get a really good mix of images from these trips, don't you? Wildlife, landscapes.
Yeah, we're not just, look, you see some guys say, come with us, and get the best landscapes. We do that as well. But as you can see, we love to get nature in general. So that's a meadowlark, a male. I found a nest and, so we could get some really cool shots of that one. Lenticular clouds. This is a little processing fun I have in Lightroom. We've got a rare puma again. We just have a lot of, good luck with pumas. But yeah, a big cross section, mate, birds, a bit of everything. So in the end, we're there literally anything that comes up, we're going to take photographs of it, from culture to landscapes to macro. The horses there, you've done this yourself, Tim. The horses are beautiful. I think the same horse came up and said hello to me again 5 years later.
Do you have any other South America trips on the calendar?
Next year we do Brazil. So we've got the Pantanal, which is really spectacular nature-wise. We do jaguar and that. Plus we do a national park on the Atlantic coast, which is going to be a lot of hummingbirds, waterfalls, that sort of thing. We're coming, of course, next year to America, and we're going to meet up with Julianne, and we're doing our 2 workshops or tours they are in the deserts of America next year. So looking forward to that. These are 2 shots I really loved. Look at the clouds and the mountains, and it went a bit minimalist with the mountains just because of the beauty of the clouds on those shots. Got trip to Africa next year, and of course workshops in Australia. So if you're out there wondering where you should go next year, guys, contact myself, and I can help you with a location that might interest you, and we'll help you to take some fantastic photographs, but also you'll have a great holiday.
Yeah, fantastic. I should mention at this point, for those that are watching us live, if you have any questions about the series or questions for Julianne or Darren, please put them in the chat there. There's a chat box there. I can see that. So if you pop your questions in there, we'll get them answered. So that would be fantastic.
And you haven't got my screen anymore, have you?
No.
Yep.
No, your screen's gone. And we will be announcing the winners of our Instagram competition shortly. So stick around if you're looking forward to that. But we'll get into that shortly if we don't have any questions. What else is going on, guys? What's Christmas time is always a silly season. So anything photographic on the cards?
I'm doing this. I'm going fishing.
I'm going up to the Sierras in California. So not a lot of snow yet, but hopefully there's snow coming this next week. So that would be lovely. I could share my screen if you would like me to. I could try again.
Yeah, please. Like please. Yeah,
okay, sure. Great. All right. So there's the desktop, and if I hit share. Can you see
a
little, all right, yeah, little Arctic fox here. Let's see.
Foxes. Aren't they cute? They're the cutest little guys.
They were so cute, and they're right. They were really young and it was just absolutely lovely. So these were in Svalbard. One of the things that, because especially when you're doing photography, there's a lot of downtime sometimes when people just sit and they're like, oh, well, there's no fox. And it's like, well, yes. There's no fox, but there's always something to shoot.
Yes.
So people wonder, I go all the way to Svalbard to photograph mushrooms, but why not? We don't have these mushrooms, in California. The Arctic tern. So we had some opportunities to photograph the birds. A lot of them had left, but it was just quite fun. I learned to walk and do this so they don't attack your head.
Yeah. So you had some nests nearby.
Yeah. And then some puffin. I think my earbuds just went dead. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. All right. Puffins. Someone called them the bus of the sky because they're just so big. Yeah, right. And so lots of birders on the trip. It was really quite fun. And
you're a professional then, Julianne. You
no.
After all your birding experience in Australia.
Thank goodness you took us to Lamington and I had some practice there.
Yeah.
Yes, that was super helpful. And then just, looking off the boat and during the sun, the sun was up almost all the time. I'm always looking for patterns and things that might make you question, like, what is that? So
beautiful dual color there. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, the sunsets were just absolutely stunning.
Yeah.
And
what time was that? 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock?
Yeah, like 12 to 1. It got, the sun would go down at 1 and it would come back up at like 3 a.m.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's not really great for good sleeping behavior, but yeah, it was very lovely. Lots of ice, just again, looking for patterns and things. Saw polar bears. That was fantastic. Really amazing, very curious juvenile. Oh, and then a little series. So they pat down the snow to see if it's firm enough for them to jump. And then he's just jumping right across
to
the other side. Just amazing, their strength and beauty.
Yeah.
So really had a nice time there. And then just, more ice. I love it. Maybe because I'm from California. All of it just looks so stunning and different. I'm always seem to be going to where there's ice. I should really just head north here and go up to Alaska. So so those are just a few of I thought that looked funny. I think it looks like teeth.
Yeah.
Don't forget we got you down for a workshop with us in Alaska in 25.
Okay. Well, I'll be there.
Yeah.
And then just the beautiful water.
Guarantee you some blue ice.
That would be amazing. Just amazing. So so that's just a few of what I'm doing. I can stop sharing. I don't want to make anybody sit through all those, but
some images.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You've been doing any photography, Tim?
Bits and pieces.
Video work.
Well, a bit of photography. I'm looking forward to a break to get into a bit more. I've I got a new camera and lens for my bird photography, which is something that I'm really enjoying of late. So
And you had an article in Australian Photography.
yeah, so I reviewed a camera and enjoyed it so much that I bought one. So
Wow.
and yeah, just really enjoying that camera. So you can see those images on my Instagram. You can find
What was that? The Lumix.
the Lumix G9 Mark II.
Yeah.
So yeah, really enjoying that. It's I mean, all modern
no competition. I use Sony, so
no, that's right. And Julianne uses Canon, so we're all different, and that's fine. But yeah, no, I think all modern cameras are doing amazing things, and I like the competition between the brands because it means that us consumers get better products. So
yeah,
if there was only one camera brand on the market, I think we'd be stuck with technology from 10 years ago. So
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so no, really enjoying that setup. I haven't been out much with it yet. It's been a bit hot for the birds. I got to get up super early because I know they're active at that time. So when I'm not having food comas in the morning, I'll be on top of it. We got a couple of questions coming through, so why don't we jump into that?
Yeah.
We got a long-term viewer here. I know your name's Tim Morrissey. From Kingscliff. He's I hope I've got your question right here, but he's asking about settings for surfing. If you're shooting surfing, what kind of ISO and what settings would you use for that? This one's probably for Dazza.
Yeah, look, there's traditionally I would have said aperture priority, open your aperture up to f4, 5, 6, and an ISO about 400, depending on the light available. And ideally, you're wanting a shutter speed at least 1,000th of a second, but heading towards 2,000th of a second. So that's the traditional sort of setup. But there's a newer, it's not new, it's been around a long time, but it's becoming easier to use now, and that is to use manual. So you set your shutter speed to 2,000th of a second, your aperture to 5, 6, even f8 you can do in this particular setting, and auto ISO. So what happens is whatever the lighting conditions are, your ISO is going to adjust for you. And a big difference to what was a great concern up until this year in particular, and I've got to thank Ms. Adobe for this, is denoise. The denoise feature in Adobe Lightroom is outstanding. It's just so good. So even if your ISO creeps up a little bit and you end up at 4,000, 5,000 ISO, apply denoise in Lightroom to that image and you'll think you shot it with a 400 ISO setting. So don't be scared to get the shutter speed up. That's the big one. And then secondly, don't worry so much also if your ISO happens to go up a little bit. And that really technique applies also for bird photography, doesn't it, Julianne? Like Julianne up to this year hadn't done any bird photography before and discovered that it's a different kettle of fish. Action photography is very different.
Yeah.
Especially in a rainforest.
Yes.
Where it's dark. Yeah. But I was amazed.
Yeah.
Like I was stunned that I could set my ISO so high and run it through denoise and still get the texture in the bird's feathers.
Yes.
That was just
that was that gave you the best indicator, didn't it? Yeah. And look, just one other tip. I'm talking fast shutter speed, freeze movement. But probably the most artistic way to photograph anything of action is to do slower shutter speed work. Little more complicated to it. Sometimes, again, manual will work really well. Sometimes I will use shutter priority in this case, and I might set it to 125th or something like that of a second, not so worried about aperture, not so worried about ISO, with a plan that I'm going to pan with. So a surfer usually comes along a line of a wave, and you might, if you get the right angle, you might actually get a perfect across the wave type angle happening, and that will work really well to pan with the movement and get, rather than get that perfect sharp image, get a artistic, and notice I said artistic, it's creative, blur, motion blur. And I'll pass now to Julianne because she's an expert at it. And Julianne, this year, you've done it as a project for a long time, but one of your loves, and I'm the same, I love it too. You get the perfect sharp line in Africa. Yeah, easy. But getting a creative motion blur image, it's got a little bit more challenge to it, hasn't it?
It does, but it makes the image so much more dynamic.
Yes.
Right. And I think it just instills some emotion in the imagery. And when you get it and when it works, it's very much unlike what other people probably are shooting. And that's always kind of a goal of mine, is I'm always trying to get something that's just a little bit different.
Yes.
Just because I get bored. So like shooting out of the moving car and everything, that for me it's really fun. And there's something about, so much technology, so much talk about technology and the camera settings and the
how sharp the lenses are.
Yes, all that. And then sometimes I'm just like, you know what, let's just break all those rules and let's just slow down our shutter speed. And for me, and it sounds a little woo-woo, I guess, but it's like trying to connect with whatever it is you're photographing and following them, and kind of, to me, it helps me be more of a part of it, as opposed to being separated by this technical camera. I'm actually like panning with them with the slow shutter speed. But it does, you got to practice a bit,
Yes. It's success and failures. Yeah.
And see what you like too, because some people don't like a really big blur. Some people like just a small blur.
Yeah, it's like waterfalls, isn't it? Some people, really the milky look to water, it's like, oh, that's not real. I don't like that, When in actual fact, if you got the opportunity, why don't you take several different shutter speeds and pick the one you like? That's the easy answer.
Yep.
Yeah, we've got a few more questions coming in. So let's say g'day to people down there. Miranda Sloan, she's down in Tassie, and she likes shooting landscapes, beach work, sunsets. And her question is, I've lost it now. Shooting, I'll pick on one of the things you asked. Shooting a full moon. How do you get the best out of shooting in the dark with a full moon?
Yeah, it's actually not difficult if you've got a long telephoto on. So if you've got a 400 to 600 to 800 millimeter focal length, your meter is actually going to handle that pretty well. So generally speaking, you can actually hand hold it at 400 ISO. And you'll find, just really roughly, you'll get something like 2/50th of a second, f8 or something like that. 400 ISO will actually give you a correct exposure of the moon. Now, there's some variables to that depending on weather conditions and things like that. Where a lot of people have trouble is trying to do a wide angle landscape type image with the moon in. And so the moon's just a little tiny spot. And then you've got two dramatically different exposures occurring. So unfortunately there, you virtually won't get the two together. And that's where you see a lot of people, they use Photoshop, and they'll use the layer capability of Adobe Photoshop to drop a moon into the landscape. And not always, but often, if you see a landscape with a big moon in it, usually that moon has been dropped into the landscape. It's not a one-shot scenario. So a lot of people do that just for fun. I've done it, and then you can do a silhouetted bird flying across the moon, and Julianne, Photoshop, you have lots of fun, can't you, being creative?
Yes.
But the moon itself isn't that difficult to photograph with a longer telephoto. So it just depends what you're trying to do with the landscape. I have done some landscapes. One of my favorite, which we'll do next year, possibly with Julianne, on our tour in Arches National Park in America. One of my favorite was, we were there at a time where it was a full moon. So we could actually get ourselves back from some of the arches in Arches National Park. And one of them, we got the moon right in the middle of an arch and photographed it with a telephoto lens so that it all got compressed up into the scene. But of course, there's still got the problem is the moon's a long way away, depth of field wise, compared to. So quite often, again, that type of shot, it's going to be a dropped in moon to get the best result. But that's all personal. I'm quite happy sometimes just to have a soft, slightly blurred out moon that is not fully sharp, because your key subject is the main point of interest. And yeah, there's a moon in the background, again, personal.
So doing a stacked kind of image is probably
that's
the only way to do it.
The only way under most situations, not all, but most. When you see landscape and a big moon, that's normally layered in Photoshop.
Yeah, cool. Jeff,
sorry to tell you that, folks.
Jeff Halloway, he's just started using a CPL and he's blown away by the impact. Colors just pop. You guys use CPL filters?
Here's a good story for you. Sorry, Nelson. Nelson on our last trip, he had all the best gear in that. Competent photographer, but he used a polarizer nearly all the time. And the trouble with a polarizer is, unless you're turning it to polarize the light, it's doing nothing. It's an ND or neutral density filter. So you lose 2 stops of light. So if you're struggling,
what was that? Someone's birthday there?
It wasn't me. If you're struggling to have the shutter speed you want, or your ISO is too high, having a polarizer on is going to complicate things further. So yes, it's correct. A polarizer for landscapes in particular will pop colors a little bit more. But Julianne, there's other ways we can do that, isn't there? We don't need to pop colors via a filter. So I use a polarizer purely for reflective reasons. If I've got a reflection I don't want, then a polarizer is fantastic. If I'm going to photograph a rainbow, a polarizer is fantastic. But otherwise, I rarely use any filters anymore, and I'm happy to use quick, simple, and efficient processing techniques in Adobe Lightroom. And I'll pass it to you there, Julianne, because there's just, D-Haze can do a little popping for us, using the luminance in HSL, the blue, we can pop the sky a bit, can't we? There's lots we can do.
Yeah, I would agree. I think my use of filters has gone down dramatically. Also with I used to have a split neutral density, that it'd only darken the sky, but I haven't used that now because of all the masking in Lightroom.
Yes.
It's so easy to just grab your linear gradient and or use the select sky AI and make adjustments to it. And you can definitely go overboard, but I make subtle adjustments to my skies all the time. It's amazing how the camera records skies so differently, like based on the foreground and when you're in different areas. And you mentioned D-Haze. That is a tool I use all the time. And I use it not only for, like you said, kind of cutting through the atmosphere and getting a little bit of pop. I use it to set my black point sometimes too, just push everything in my shadows down a bit, because it does add that contrast because you're increasing the dynamic range of the scene, but also it adds a little bit of saturation. So you get a little bit of a boost there. I just have to be a little careful with D-Haze. If you go too far, you'll start enhancing the noise, and then just go to the details panel and you can reduce the noise real quick.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people have difficulty using D-Haze because they overdo it. And as you say, usually it's just subtle. That's the key tip we could give everyone. Hey, is just sometimes it's only a level of 10 or 12, or you don't go to 20, 30, 40, 50 because you're overdoing it. So it's too much.
Yeah, in fact, in the Arctic, some of those images, I'm using it in the other direction. If you've got a foggy day, to just add a bit more atmosphere to it.
Yeah. Yeah, good. And I've in recent times been going to magnetic filters. So I've got using Case filters, KASE, Case. And if I do use filters, I find these are fantastic. So I just put a ring on my lens. It then clicks and attaches. And if it's a polarizer, I can still just turn it. So remember, if you are going to use a polarizer, you need to turn it to polarize. If you're not doing that, you're wasting your time. It's not a filter that's going to do the job for you. The gentleman I mentioned on a recent trip in South America, he was using it at sunrise. It doesn't work at sunrise. It's the light's not there to polarize. So definitely limit your use of it's pouring rain here at the moment. Limit your use of filters is what I would suggest. And something like these magnetic filters is really cool way to go, quick and easy. And then, like Julianne and I are talking about, understand how to process, use Adobe Lightroom, but whatever program you're going to use, understand that there are ways you can actually increase your colors and to get the type of same pop type result. Because I'm a color person, love my color, and I love to pop, so vibrance, I do vibrance, contrast, I do a bit of contrast, and then some images like you, Julianne, I do a bit of dehazing as well, etc.
Do you find though sometimes using the polarizer lens that there's too much color? I find that sometimes the skies are just so blue that you have to start pulling down the saturation.
For sure.
I know you like doing that, Julianne.
I do it even without the polarizer, right? I decrease the blues in my skies because they actually look fake to me, and they look too dark sometimes. If you nail them, like I was in the desert here, and it just looks fake. It looks like it's unreal because it's nothing
really black sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah, just amazing if you get the angle right with the light. Yeah.
We've got Felicity Johnson. She's a nature photographer. What are the advantages of mirrorless? Should she step up from her Nikon D780? Now, Julianne, we say this like it's a bad thing, but you haven't made the switch to mirrorless yet. Is that like?
Nope, I have not.
No.
It's not. It's more about being very invested in the gear that I already have. So there's huge advantages of it. I saw that when you guys were doing wildlife and bird photography and being able to lock focus on the eye. My camera gear is a few years old. And so I saw the huge advantage of being able to track focus with the eye. That would just be amazing if you're doing nature.
Yeah.
Most of the things that I photograph they're rocks and scenics, not often moving. So I don't have quite as much incentive to move right now, just because I don't know which camera I'd get. And I don't want to, I just have a lot of lenses. I have everything from a tilt shift to a longer lens to a short lenses. And I just.
No. And look, you're not in an unusual situation. And for me, that's something I deal with every week. Someone contacts me and says, Darren, I was the same. So up until I went to mirrorless, I had, DSLR gear. Traditional DSLR gear is fantastic, as you know, Julianne. It does a great job. And in particular, if it's not moving in that, and you haven't got high-end action, then there's possibly not going to be a dramatic change to your photography, except everyone loves to spend money and buy new gear, don't they? I had that brand new camera, etc. But as you saw, on 4 trips you did with us, the difference between DSLR and mirrorless technology when it comes to action is dramatic. There's a huge difference, and it really is that AI tracking. So if the viewer being mentioned is a nature photographer, which means they do a bit of landscape, birds, animals, macro, a bit of everything, then I can say there'll definitely be a difference with their photography. I just had a lady who is using mirrorless, but she's using an old original mirrorless camera. She's probably in Antarctica now or just about to finish. And she actually emailed me while on the ship heading to Antarctica and thanked me for talking into buying the newer mirrorless camera because of the action side of it, the AI action. And Tim, you're the same. Hey, you've just got the the new Lumix has got the new focusing capability with AI. It's a big difference, isn't it, mate?
It makes a huge difference. Look, I mean, I've been with Lumix for quite a few years, and it's not known for its focus system. It's had, let's be honest, it's had a pretty rubbish focus system for a while, because they've been going with the contrast based focus. But I still, that's how I got into bird photography, and you still get good results. You just got to work your butt off to actually get those results. But what I'm finding with the new focus systems and the new AI, like eye tracking and things like that, it just takes out some of those extra elements that hold you back from getting the shot that you want to get. So it just improves your success rate, I think, which, I'm definitely a tech nerd, and I like to get the new gear and stuff like that. I've got too many cameras, but it's like, if there's something specifically, if I think that I can improve my photography or increase my hit rate, I usually, look towards that kind of technology. But this is my industry, so I've got a bit more flexibility to be updating my gear a bit more.
And a good reason,
and a good reason, because it's what I do every day. But look, I think most modern cameras will give you quite a bit of life in terms of what the tech it's giving you. You don't need to have the latest camera, but you do get a reasonable life out of a camera these days. So I wouldn't get hung up on, unless you're really targeting that high action stuff. I wouldn't necessarily say you need to upgrade. If you
don't need an $8,000 camera, for example.
No.
Just a couple of really key points to help the viewers is that changing a kit is not as difficult and as expensive as you think. Your older camera gear still has a good value, and you'll be surprised how quickly and the return you can get, because sometimes when we have the older gear, we tend to have at least two lenses that we hardly ever use, and they're just sitting there, and we use them very rarely, that sort of thing. And it's an asset just sitting there, not being, going to waste, sort of thing. So you'll get money back on that. But your camera, your lenses, all that, you'll be able to sell them and get reasonable money back to what you originally paid. So that's one key thing. The other thing is, don't think of swapping from DSLR to mirrorless to go lighter. That's not going to happen. I guess so many people say, my gear's too heavy nowadays and I'm struggling to carry it and all that sort of thing. Unless you get Olympus or Lumix smaller sensor cameras, you're not going to get lighter gear. Sony's pretty good on the full frame side of things, but Canon and Nikon, for example, their gear is still quite heavy. You're definitely not going to benefit from the weight side of it. But what you can benefit from is newer technology. So there is several features. As Tim said, it's not just speed and focus that is all important, but there are a couple of other features too that make a difference for your photography. You can see the depth of field as you're shooting. So what's sharp and what's not in a mirrorless system. I know Julianne would love that as a feature. Instead of guessing it in her DSLR, you can actually see it in your mirrorless. Your screen is permanently brighter. You can actually shoot at night, whereas a DSLR at night, most people struggle, even if you've got faster lenses. So there is a few other reasons to go to mirrorless. And one of them I always think eventually is, every so often you really do need to, if not your kit, at least your camera, upgrade your camera so you got the current better technology, and there is a difference in regards to what you can capture. And as Julianne discovered in Australia, her gear is really good gear, and in its day was that, I had the same camera. It was some of the best gear, but when it comes to birds and some subjects, it's not as easy, is it?
No,
I totally agree. I also think that getting something that fits in your hand, something that you're super comfortable with is very important.
Balanced,
some of these cameras are smaller and some are bigger, and depending on what lens.
Some are too small for some people.
Yeah.
So this kind of leads in well, actually, to Tim's question about photographers who are living with disability, he's asking what's a good camera setup for someone who has a disability. I think that it probably depends on what your where your abilities are, and in terms of what kind of setup that you want. I think the great thing about modern mirrorless cameras these days is all the custom buttons and things like that.
And customize it, yeah.
You can actually, you can set up. I've photographed with people who don't have mobility in one hand, so they've set up custom buttons so that they can do a whole lot of things just so they can operate one-handed, things like that. So it really just depends on, and it's I think it's the same with any photographer. It's you can set up your camera how it's going to work for you, and if you happen to have limitations with weight and things like that, then there are other options, like go with a smaller sensor camera.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If
they all have their pluses and minuses, all of them.
Yeah. And also, whether, if you're wanting to shoot, say, action photography or something like that, and you might have a limitation with the weight and that you can throw around, you can look at maybe getting like a gimbal head for your tripod or something like that. Yeah. Which will assist you in terms of basically takes the weight out of the camera. So I think there's, do you guys have any other thoughts?
Yeah, look, the one thing about today, and I would say in the last 10 years, but let's say the last 20 years, is if you can think of it, you can solve it and do it. Something's available. So how's this? I met a lady a few years ago in Brazil, and she had no hands at all. So she just had stumps, boom, there. And she strapped a camera to her arm and took the photo with the nose. So anything's possible. We've got a long-time lady who's been with us 25 times or something, and she's got terrible crippling arthritis. So when she goes to take photographs, she's holding a camera like this and taking a photograph like this, and she takes fantastic photos. So for her husband bought her a simple camera, a good, like a 28 to 300 millimeter lens, so that she could just manage to work, what she needed to. Sure, she struggles a little bit at times, but she's done, 20 books on photography, loves her photography, photographs of grandkids, all that sort of thing. Anything's for you. This eye of mine, I'm not blind, but I'm virtually blind in this eye. So I had to change my photography to my left eye in my 20s so that so that I could do my photography. I still struggle today, with processing a little bit and that, because my vision's not where it should be. I'd like it to be as a photographer. So driving and all that, I'm legal and it's fine and all that, but just to let you know, but photographically, it frustrates me a bit at times where I can't, I don't see 3D, for example, as well as I'd like. I'm not dimensional as I would like with my photography, even though I teach that a lot, is, look at the dimensional aspect of photography. So it's just a case of working around things. I'm always happy if anyone's got questions of that nature, please contact me, email me, guys, darren@worldadventures.com.au. Happy to help you out. No costs. Just contact me, and you want to sell gear, you want to buy gear, happy to get you into the right gear, because I hate people seeing the wrong, using the wrong gear. And likewise, anyone who's struggling with, do I need a monopod or a tripod, that sort of thing, happy to answer those questions for you.
Yeah, great. Well, we've got a question for you that's kind of in light of that. Super Rusty is asking, what's your go-to lens, mate, for just general purpose photography?
My GP lens. So my current GP lens, which I really, really like and enjoy, is a Sony 20 to 70 millimeter focal length. Historically, I've enjoyed 24 to 105. I think you use that one, Julianne, don't you?
Yep.
Yep.
That's my go-to as well.
Yeah. So 24 to the other one, and that's an f4 lens, and I got no issues. F4 2.8. It's, you know, people get hung up for the wrong reasons for those. You know, the aperture variation. I did have a Sony 24-70 2.8 lens. It's beautiful lens, super sharp. But I decided I wanted to go a little lighter, which this 20-70 is, and plus I like that extra wide angle. Now, to be honest, I'd like it to be a 20-105 mm lens, but that's what we all us photographers are always asking for, is things that aren't there. And so my current sort of kit is I've got a 14 mm super wide angle lens, which is all Sony. I've got a 20-70, which is a really nice, small, easy to use, go-to sort of lens. I've got a 70-200 mm lens, 2.8, which I take on some trips and don't take on other trips. And then I've got a 200-600 mm lens, which is my go-to nature sort of lens. So obviously it depends on what your interest is in photography. You guys love your 24-105s for one key reason, don't you? That extra little bit of tele.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And mine's a macro as well, so that's nice.
Yes, yeah, mine's pretty good on that too. And of course the other thing that comes into it is our megapixels available. So if you've got a camera that's 20 megapixels, you've got some limitations then with your cropping and that. But I use a 50 megapixel camera, so that actually allows me to crop a lot. So sometimes I don't change lenses and I'm happy to crop, you know, just because I've got that capability. And you get that too with a new mirrorless, Julianne.
Well, one of the things that I think that I would really like with the new mirrorless is how bright the screens are, because I do have very light sensitive eyes, and so it's very difficult for me to actually read the settings in the like when I got my eye to the viewfinder. So that to me would be very helpful. The other thing that would be really helpful is, you know, that your camera has that flip screen. So I am constantly using my mobile device to check different angles and stuff before I set up a tripod, or just, you know, this is better at this converts a 3D world into a 2D world right there. So instead of me, you know, moving all around and trying to get down and up and down and up all day, a lot of times I will just, you know, put that down on the ground and see what things look like. And I think that if, you know, when you're doing the kind of workshops that you do and you're out all day for 7 weeks in a row, any little advantage to not getting up and down off the ground and climbing all over the place might help. And I really find that by using this, I just get different perspectives, different angles that I wouldn't necessarily otherwise get if I hadn't pulled out my mobile device. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the negatives of a DSLR. Unfortunately, they do have the flip screen. But most of it, the focusing is terrible. Whereas a mirrorless focusing with the flip screen is really good, you know, and you can actually pinpoint focus, just touch screen and that sort of thing, and the focusing generally is very good. Yeah, so no, that's a good point.
Yeah, well, we're going to announce the competition in just a moment. One last quick one from Tim. He's asking people who want to be professional photographers that are living with disability, what's a good workshop, Darren? Do you run workshops that would be suitable for someone with a disability?
I think if you do, I'd suggest if you contact, you know, like ourselves and say, this is my direction and goal. Have you got a workshop that is relevant to, you know, so next year, for example, in June, July, we're doing our Ultimate Creative Workshop, which is our annual event. And that's a really good event for up-and-coming pro photographers and serious enthusiasts, right through to beginners. And I say that because we have Mike, the editor of Australian Photography magazine. He comes along. You can talk to Mike, you can get published and get paid. Hey, you're a pro straight away. You know, that's how it works. You know, Tim does it and gets paid, you know, so it's cool, isn't it, Tim? You see your imagery used.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, a month or two later, you get a payment and you go, you know, it's nothing more satisfying. So I don't think there's anyone who does specific how to be a pro workshop, and I'd be a bit concerned about that, whether they had the right qualifications to do it, to be honest. But definitely, if you like contact me and say, hey, Darren, I want to come and do this workshop, or can you suggest a workshop? I can then direct information more specifically to your interests, which is what we do on an individual basis with everyone anyway. You know, any event we do.
Having been on quite a few workshops and mostly with Darren, I would say that anyone at any level is going to learn a lot. And it's really, you know, it's a combination of being at the right places at the right time with a like-minded group of people and with tutors that know what they're talking about. Who can give you that kind of, so the advice that's going to really be suitable to you. So, look, I think a workshop is a great place to learn, but I would also suggest that there would be, Night College and places.
Well, the big one for Night College is to do a business management course, because photography is 70%. You know, making a living out of photography is 70% business, 30% photography. If you can't get your business skills right, you're not going to be successful. There's great photographers out there who cannot make a cent out of photography because their business skills are terrible. And you know, that is the biggest thing. If you're going to do another course, Tim, absolutely, I'd go and do a night business course and, you know, learn to, like Pierce, our eldest son, he did a 2-year traineeship with us. He's a very, very good photographer, but he went and did another university course, which he finished last year, and he loved it because they really went into the nuts and bolts of the business side of things, and it really helped him, you know, confidence-wise as to how to do a proper invoice and how to, submit your capabilities to a business that says, hey, I'm after a photographer to do blah, blah, blah. Well, how do you go about doing that? You know, so there's all sorts of variables there besides just the photography.
Yeah, definitely. Well, on that note, I think we're going to dive into the announcements of the winners for our competition. Thank you for all your questions. Miranda just commented her favorite combo for her Canon is the 50mm 1.8. That's a nice lens. You can't go wrong with a nice sharp 50mm lens.
Yeah.
Let me share my screen here, and we'll have a quick recap of the competition. Okay, so you should see that now. Our competition, your best travel shot. What we wanted to see was we're all about photography, and what does travel mean to you? Submit your photo to show us. So that's what we wanted to see. It's a pretty broad kind of brief, but essentially, you know, the fact that Snap Happy, we love to travel, we love to take photos, we love to educate ourselves through that means we wanted to see, what you could come up with for that. So the first prize, we'll start at the first prize and then we'll give the runners up. I think that's, you usually go around the other way, but no, let's talk about the first prize. We have some amazing sponsors that supplied our prizes. So big shout out to Sony, Camera Electronic, and World Photo Adventures. This is the big prize, Sony A7C Mark II with a 70 to 350mm G series lens. And Camera Electronic said, well, let's make that into the ultimate travel kit. So they've added a low pro backpack, a Photix LED pocket light, and a Manfrotto B-Free tripod. I have one of those. It's a good little bit of kit. And Darren's putting in a Straight Shooter hardcover book, which is all his articles from Australian Photography Magazine, from his Straight Shooter article there. And you'll also get the back catalogue of Snap Happy episodes. There's a whole 7 seasons worth there, so you can binge to your heart's content. So you guys can welcome Darren and Julianne to make some comments as we go here, but let's dive in and see the winner of our travel competition. This image is from Brody Gamble. He said,
okay, I found this on the web first from Brody Gamble.
Okay.
Check it out.
Thanks, Siri. Did I ask you for your input there, Siri? I don't think so. But Brody Gamble said, we cannot lower the mountain. Instead, we must elevate ourselves. Darren, you were part of the judging process.
Yep.
What did you like about this image?
I really, it's a great story image, and it, you did a particular outline as to what you wanted. Can you just repeat what the outline was again? So
the outline was, sorry, Siri's just doing weird things at my end here. Yeah, well, what does travel mean to you? Yeah. So I think the image is a lovely image, which obviously he's had to travel somewhere to go and get that. I don't know where it is. New Zealand, I believe.
Yeah, and it's just a great story image because you've got the mountain there and you've got a person who's not domineering or overpowering, looking at the beauty of the place. They've traveled there looking at the beauty of the mountain. It's really well balanced, which is important. On a personal level, if I was going to do something, I probably would have silhouetted the foreground a little bit more and not worried about detail. Some people like to put detail into everything. But that's on a personal level, and it's not about me. It's about the image and the content of the competition. So, I thought it was a fantastic image, really nice.
Yeah, it's got nice, clean layers. I like the definition between the three tonal layers as well.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
And probably a key thing, to mention at this time, Tim, is and I think everyone appreciates it, is the fact that often in a competition, and I know looking at the imagery, there were several images that could have won and several images that could come later and all that. So, there's quite a few great images, wasn't there? But there was also quite a few images that just weren't even anything to the topic at all.
Look,
unusual.
Well, that's right. And I think what it would be really nice to see is, when you're given a brief, and this was a simple brief, I mean, granted, it's quite a broad subject, and in anything creative, you can kind of interpret that as you will.
Absolutely.
And the same thing comes with the judging. When I did the shortlisting, and when Darren did the final judging, it is very subjective. So there was some amazing technical photos. There's some amazing story photos. And there was some that I just thought didn't quite fit into the category of the travel. Yes, anything can almost be interpreted as travel, but I think when you've got an image like this one that does actually tell a strong story.
And that's the big thing, is the story aspect to it in this case. Yeah.
So, look, there were so many great entries, and, don't be disheartened if you don't take out one of the prizes.
Absolutely not,
because I would say it was so, I had a short list from a couple of hundred images. I made a short list of 30, and that was really hard. And I personally I didn't want to give Darren any less images. So the fact that he was able to choose a few images was pretty incredible. So I appreciate that, Darren. It's not an easy job.
No. Judging is not
easy.
No.
But we have two runners up as well, who will take home the Straight Shooter book and the back catalogue of Snap Happy episodes. Darren, tell us a little bit about the book.
Well, the Straight Shooter has got over 10 years of and about 90 articles in there that I've written over the years in Australian photography. So I'm still doing that series. But I just thought, hey, 10 years is pretty cool. Not many people get to write 10 years and of consistency in a magazine and on a particular topic, as in Straight Shooter. And so I thought I put a book together, and the guys at Australian Photography were all keen. So we did that, and it's done really well. And I only hear positive, so hopefully, people pick up, because it's got a lot of diversity of subjects in it, huge amount of diversity. So I hope people enjoy that aspect of, it's not nature, it's landscapes, it's culture, and then there's technical tips, equipment tips, whole diversity of subjects in there.
Yeah, really. Yeah, there's a lot of information packed in there, and pretty pictures and all that stuff too. So it's a great book.
I think it's education and inspiration. I have a copy of it myself, and I enjoy it quite a bit.
Thank you. Yes.
Well, let's dive in and see who our first runner-up is. This is the image.
Oh, I love this pick just on its simplicity. Some people are going to go, "Oh, it's a bit," but it's a great story image to what you ask people, the travel side of things. So, having the swimming costumes there and all that, there's obviously a little bit of thought to this, has gone in early, or just the night before they've been sitting around the campfire and said, "Hey, we've got our swimming gear. Why don't we do this fun photograph?" Great story, simple photograph, simple technique. Good on them. Great result.
Yeah, look, I don't think the caption in this competition was actually could quite really support it, but I think this entry really doesn't even need the caption. But the caption from Mark Daffy, congratulations. You can imagine our disappointment. All we wanted was a cooling dip in the water during our road trip to Birdsville. Must have taken a wrong turn at Albuquerque. So quirky, funny caption, but essentially that image would have made the cut without that caption. But a great image, tells a great story. It's humorous. Again, it proves that you don't need the highest technical quality image to win a competition, to be aesthetic, to be entertaining.
That could have been taken with a phone, with anything. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. So we've got one more runner-up, and let's just dive into that image. And here we have an image from Fran Gass, Natural Arch, Springbrook National Park in Queensland. Darren, what did you like about this image?
Again, it's a great story image to a location, that's different to what most of us have seen before. I haven't been to this location since 1986 or something like that. So, for me, I just thought, what a lovely, it's well exposed. It's a lovely image. And it tells the story of that location really well. So there's a lot of landscapes that were in the mix. A lot of them were standard landscapes, to be honest. Some were a bit too different. Astrophotography, for example, I just found that a bit too hard, with the travel side of it. So in the end, I just felt that this, had that story.
I think you could imagine the traveler here kind of after having a long hike. I don't know the location myself. I've never been, but you can kind of imagine, a long hike, and then this is kind of the moment where they kind of chilling out, enjoying the.
Exactly. Yeah. And do I go for a swim, or is there crocodiles there? I don't know. So there's no crocodiles, but the sort of place where you go, gee, that looks, I want to be there, type thing. So.
Yeah, so congratulations to our winners of our travel competition. And like I said, if you entered and didn't get a mention, I might put up some of that shortlist as well, so you can see if your shortlist images made it there. But even then, there were so many great images, and you should all be proud of what you put forward. And just entering a competition, I think is a great way to learn photography and a great way to do something with your photography. So.
Definitely, mate. Definitely. Don't folks, don't be feel you missed out or anything like that. Next time you have a go, you're in with a chance, and it's not a case of lotto or anything like that. This is just a case. A key tip I'd like to give you is read the terms and conditions, and read what the requirements of the competition are, because so many, I'd say 50% of people that enter don't enter the right imagery to the competition. So it's a big one. If you can enter the right image to what is being requested, you're already giving yourself a really good chance. And look, there are some people who regularly win competitions and that, and that's because they pay attention to that. But likewise, any competition has a mix of different judges at different times. In the end, you got to have a go. And if you have a go, you're already a winner, because it's made you work, put imagery together. Julianne, Lightroom's fantastic for that, isn't it? With, the ability to sort images, make a collection. So if I was entering a competition, I would make a collection and then start to drop images in there. And, Tim might say, well, you want your best 4 images. Well, I'd probably stick 20 images in there to start, and then cut them back and get to a point where you go, right, there's my 4 images. And I know Australian Photography Magazine's the same way. There's my 4 images. It answers the wording that Tim's asked for, and I'm going to win. I'm going to have a go. That's what you do.
I do that all the time, where I just have a collection per year, and I will just feed it. Like when I see those images that I really like or really resonate, I just put them in there too, so that it doesn't seem as overwhelming when you do see a competition, because you're like, oh, I don't have to look through all my photos. I can go just within this year and see what, resonated with me. So It's one of those things that you kind of, like, I feel if I keep on top of it and just, make a little collection and just put in those good images, then it's not as big of a deal to enter a competition.
Exactly. And that's a really good point, because when it comes time and everyone starts leaving it to the last few days, I've got to enter that competition, you're then putting pressure on yourself, and you then end up so stressed that you're actually not making correct decisions, and you put in the wrong images, guaranteed. Where, I agree 100% with your method is, you take a photograph, you go, wow, that is a beautiful photo and should enter a competition. Don't even have to think of what comp at the time, because there's 500 competitions out there, and put it in a collection and then come back to it. Yeah. Great way to do it.
Yeah, well, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's joined us on the stream today, and those that are watching it later. We're wrapped for the year. No more Snap Happy, but there's always our YouTube channel and our website. You can find a whole bunch of stuff there. We eventually roll out all the episodes, so we'll have new episodes coming out next year, new old episodes, I should say, coming out next year. That'll, once we're out of contract with Channel 10, we can put them up on YouTube for free. That's what our whole plan with this whole thing is. We don't ever want to have to charge you to access this stuff. It's a passion for us. It might be our day job, but it's photography is a passion for all of us. And so we appreciate you joining us on that journey. And
tell your friends, guys, tell your friends, because Tim does all the work in the background, and it has to be done via sponsorship. Money doesn't grow on trees. So please tell your friends, send emails to Tim and say how good he looks and how good he is and all that sort of stuff. And really feedback for him gives him encouragement into the future. So, I know he'd love to hear from you, what you enjoyed about different facets of this season that's just gone.
Absolutely. And look, you can send me those emails as well that say, please bring Maddie back. We're sick of looking at your face, but that's fine as well. But thanks, Julianne, as well, for being a guest. Hopefully,
thank you.
Hopefully, we can put out some more content with you in the future. I'd love to do that if you'd love to do that.
Absolutely.
So I'm hoping I can come and jump on that trip with you guys end of next year.
Only 2 tours, guys. December next year, USA. You'll get highly recommend the 2 of us, maybe the 3 of us.
And look, I mean, there's there's whispers and rumors that Dr. Russell Preston Brown might make his way onto that one too.
Oh,
Hey,
yes.
who knows?
Yes, there is rumors, isn't there? Yes.
Yes. So hey,
It's
that
one of
would
my
be
favorite places too. It is
yeah.
so beautiful. Death Valley, the southern Southwest, gorgeous.
Super creative and beautiful landscapes. All the
Great
deserts.
energy.
I call it John Wayne country. You know, if you're brought up on John Wayne movies, that's where we're going.
Yeah.
It's beautiful,
Awesome.
stunning.
Well, I can't wait. We want to say thanks again for watching the stream. You know, we might do this again one day if there's enough interest in it. But yeah, once again, thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching Snap Happy this year. Merry Christmas. Have a happy new year. And we hope to see you again soon.
See you all.
Thank you.
Bye.